How's it going, everyone? My name is Jalen, and welcome back to another segment of Under the Radar. And today we'll talk about another five players, all going to be seniors like last time. And these are some guys I think maybe going in the second round, maybe going to go undrafted, but I definitely do think they definitely deserve at least a two-way contract. Maybe not this year, maybe next year, but I definitely think these guys will be on some form of an NBA roster in the next coming years. But let's get right on into this. My first player today, I'll have Kadar Copeland out of NC State, North Carolina State, and this is the guy. I'm really a big fan of obviously all of these guys, but this is the guy that I think definitely is really underrated. I think this is the guy that's going to come in. Definitely probably won't get any type of looks towards the first or second round, but I think this is definitely a guy that's going to come into summer league. Probably will make a name there. Definitely is going to make a way to some type of camp, I think. He's really scrappy, really likes to let everybody know he's kind of there. He'll talk to anybody. He's going to talk to the crowd. He's going to talk to the other team. He's going to talk to the other coach. He might talk to himself, but he lets his game do some of the talking too. He backs it up with that. And he's gone off with some bigger games this year. He's had 4 games of 10 plus assists. He's had a game where one of those were 16 assists against SMU. So this is a guy that really is capable of playing a lead ball handler role. Is more or less what he started to do towards it when he went to McNeese State and NC State. Under Will Wade, he's just been the lead ball handler. I think he's very comfortable with the ball in his hands, especially being at a 6'6" frame, bigger frame, longer arms. And I think nowadays where we see a lot of these guys start to shift towards being the lead ball handler, it's the 6'6", 6'8" range, and I think he kind of fits into that mold and definitely be a perfect fit for somebody off their bench. But the one thing with him is going to be his 3-point shooting. As you can see here, it's only shooting 28%, 29% for his career, and it's simply just not going to cut it, especially if a lot of your time is going to be off the ball at this next level. But with that being said, he did shoot about 39.7%, so almost 40% this year from 3, but it's super low volume. It's only shooting 1.7% or attempts per game. He's only taken 58 shots to wrap up his senior year at this point. He's made 23 of them, so it's like, how good of a shooter really are you? But to support that, I do believe a lot of times free throw percentage is a great translation to if somebody is capable of being able to learn how to shoot. I think if you're a decent free throw shooter, if you're continuously increasing your free throw percentage, I do believe that you definitely can increase your 3-point percentage in the near future. And going off of that, he did shoot 77%, 75 or 78% almost coming into this year, and he shot 5.5 attempts per game. So he's getting to the free throw line in a pretty good amount of times. As you can see, he has a good frame at 220. He likes to get downhill. He likes to get down to the basket. That's where a lot of his scoring is going to come from, at the basket. And when they're fouling him now, he's making free throws. So I think if he can come in, I think it focus a lot of his time on just being a corner shooter, just catch and shoot. He's probably going to get a lot of time attacking closeouts. I don't know how much he's going to run the second unit if he is out there in any facet of an NBA lineup, but I think if he does become a respectable 34, 36% 3-point shooter with the playmaking and defensive ability that he does have, I think he's a really good defender too with the lengthy arms. He's almost posted 2 steals a game this year, and he had 9 games with 3+ steals this year. I mean, this is a really active defender too, and I think if a lot of these players have highlighted, if you add that jump shot to your game, I can't see a world where the defense and the playmaking don't really carry out and find your way to a 5 to 8 year career in the NBA in some way. And this isn't really the most decorated player coming in or finishing his college career now. He was ranked the 140th best player in 24/7 Sports coming out of high school. Didn't really have the most accolades, as you can see here. He's the All-Southland second team in 2025. He led the ACC this year in assists per game with 6.5. He was third team All Big Ten his sophomore year. Before he left, he was at Syracuse that year. But the big one I think that in his career is getting McNeese State their first NCAA win last year under Will Wade before he ultimately decided to transfer and follow him here at NC State. But I think this is a guy that has a lot of character to him. I mean, me personally, he reminds me a lot of Lance Stevenson. I think he has that fire to him. He has the craftiness ability to the herky jerk to get around people. He has a really interesting ball handling talents and skills, but the shooting is what's going to be his ultimately it's going to hold him back if he can't get into, or if it's going to be the difference between if he makes it into the league or not. And I do think in recent time he's definitely trending in the good direction to be able to be a good shooter. He's shooting, like I said, almost 40% this year, 78% from the free throw line. And I think if you mix all that in with the defense and the playmaking, I do think this can be an interesting player. He's probably going to be undrafted, but I think this is definitely going to be an interesting player on somebody's team. Hopefully come this year. Next, I'll have his teammate, Darian Williams, another guy out of NC State. And keeping the trend, this is another guy that was really underlooked coming out of high school. He was the 47th power forward on 24/7 Sports coming out of high school. So not even 24 or the 47th player. He was completely unranked, the 47th power forward. I think he was the number 3 player in Nevada. He did go play there ultimately for his freshman year at Nevada, but this is a guy that was just severely underlooked, and I think this is probably one of the, out of these 5, I think this guy definitely has probably the best translations to being an NBA player at the next level. But as you can see here, he had some pretty decent scoring numbers coming in, and he was averaging almost 8 points his freshman year, to pair up with almost 7 rebounds. 11 points the next year, almost jumped to 8 rebounds, 15 points, 6 rebounds, and then 14 points, almost 5 rebounds again. Really consistent. I think this guy is a really underrated rebounder for his size. He's a really good frame at 6'6", 225, as you can see. I think he's going to come in and be able to play probably your 2 through 4. I'll touch on his playmaking ability here in a second, but he's just a really translatable game for the NBA. A lot of his 3-point volume, when he's 40% of his career shots were threes. He almost shot 40% for his career. I mean, a lot of NBA teams are going to want your 3 and D guys to just sit in your corners and play off of your star players that you do ultimately build your team around. And I think this is a guy that's going to be a low volume, probably undrafted guy. Maybe squeeze into the probably after 45 to 60 range. I think he definitely deserves to be drafted, but if he doesn't, I think he definitely is going to make it on some type of team because of the skills that he does have. As I said, his playmaking, I think it's very overlooked for a guy that's not really known to be a playmaker. I think a lot more of his scoring is what's more highlighted in his overall name at this point. But this is a guy that posted a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio for his career. He had almost 400 assists, as you can see down there. This is a guy that takes care of the ball, and also he kind of looks good doing it. He has pretty good, great vision. I mean, he makes a lot of great reads, and he doesn't need a lot of volume to make those right reads. And I think if we translate to the next level, this is a guy that's probably going to, like I said, probably play off a lot of great players, potentially. Can play your 2 through 4. It's going to be a lot of catch and shoot attempts, and if they do overplay him, because he is a very good, capable 3-point shooter, as I said, he's capable of putting it on the floor and attacking and creating for others. And I think with that playmaking ability and being able to potentially attack the hard closeout and then kick it to a big, or even kick it back out to another 3-point shooter, that unlocks a lot of offense off your bench. And I think a lot of guys just having that versatility, being able to not be a cone on the offensive end and just only being able to just shoot and being out there for just your defensive impact. I think this is a guy that gives you a little bit more than just your 3-point shooting on the offensive end. And I think this is a guy that kind of reminds me a little bit of Caleb Martin. Don't really think he has the quickness that Caleb Martin has, but this is a guy that's very capable of 3-point shooter. I'd say he's probably a better 3-point shooter than Caleb Martin ever will be, just at this point in his career. I think he's definitely probably a little bit worse of a defender. I don't think he's as lengthy, but he has good frame, like I said. I think he does move his feet pretty decent, really well. He can switch on probably, I'd say, 6'5" to 6'9" players. I think he definitely has a wide range of being able to guard different talents. I think with a mix of that and just the defensive ability as well as being able to just shoot it at the next level, I think this is a guy that definitely there's a lot of teams that definitely can use this type of talent, and I think this is definitely a guy that probably shouldn't be getting as overlooked as he is. And I'll just wrap that up with some of his accolades here. He was all Big Ten 12 first team in 2025. He was the third team the year before. He was NACB All-District First Team, so this is the coaches voting on him for last year. He was basically a top 5 player in all of college basketball last year, according to the coaches. And I think that's the most important opinion, because those are the guys that having to scheme against him, having to play against him night in and out. So I think that's ultimately a lot more of an important opinion than anybody else could really have. And then wrapping it up, he was ultimately the Mountain West Freshman of the Year that first year when he was at Nevada. I think I said he's come on and just been an underrated player. He's really produced in his time. He's put up 16,000 points, 800 rebounds, almost 400 assists, and he's still under 200. Or I guess he's going to finish his career now, but he's under 200 assists or 200 turnovers for his career. So this is a really reliable player. I think this is a very underlooked player, and I personally hope that he gets drafted on draft night, but I think he definitely is going to find a home within the couple hours of the draft ultimately wrapping up. The next we'll have Keyshawn Hall out of Auburn. This is a very well-traveled guy in his career. A lot of these guys have played at a lot of different colleges, but this is a rare guy where he played 4 different schools in 4 different years, and he produced at a lot of them. He started his career at UNLV, then went to George Mason for his sophomore year, plays his junior year at UCF, and then ultimately transfers to what was a very upsetting, I think underwhelming Auburn team, but I don't think that's going to hold anything against him personally. I think he came in and did what he was supposed to do, and I think that was to get a lot of baskets, get a lot of buckets, create a lot for himself, and this is a guy that also was somehow unranked. I mean, this is a guy that came in, almost scored 2,000 career points in college, and not a single major outlet was reporting him to be worth anything in college. And it's just amazing somehow that this is a guy that I personally believe that should be getting, like I said, maybe some second round looks. Definitely will be going undrafted most likely, but I think some team definitely is going to see at least a two-way role in him, and I think this is a guy that's going to ultimately make an NBA roster in the next coming years. I think this is a guy that definitely developed his three-point shot in these past couple of years, shooting almost 37% for his career. I think 37, actually no, right on the dot, 37%. Shot 37%, I think, this year as a senior. Just really progressed as a three-point shooter as he's come in, and it's really just unlocked a lot of his game. This is a guy that you can't really tell from his picture, but in his freshman year, I'd say he probably was 40 pounds heavier, if not more. He slimmed down a lot. He completely changed his overall ability to play basketball. He became a lot more shifty, a lot more of a problem to guard on the offensive end. I think he's a really interesting handle, and I just comparing him, it's really hard to try and put a label on it. I don't really think a lot of people with his size. I think 6'7" is probably underrating him. I think he's probably going to come in 6'8", maybe even a little bit taller than that. And if he is going to be 230, I think it's just tough. It's tough to mock any comparison there. I have written down, I have Naz Reid. I think that's really not the greatest. I think he doesn't possess any of the defensive qualities, but the offense is what you're really looking at this guy for. He's just a nightmare mismatch, and his handle ability and ability to take people off the dribble and rock people to sleep, and the quickness he does possess to ultimately blow by a lot of people he probably shouldn't be able to blow by. I think that's ultimately what you're looking at him for here. And this is a guy that's probably going to come off your bench and be able to get a quick couple buckets, going to be able to knock down some three-point shots if he's playing off your star-level player still in that second lineup, and there's not really too much more that you're going to want for that. He's like I said, he's going to be size mismatch. He can probably play your 3 or 4. I probably won't say he can play your 5, depending on the lineup, but it's going to be really interesting what you're going to be able to do with him here with his size and the ability to create for himself and really, I guess he can create for others. It's just whether or not he's going to pass it out or settle for his shot for himself. But this is a really interesting guy here. I think defensively he's not really the greatest defensive talent. You can see here he's never really statistically posted the numbers, but I think he's definitely became a lot better of a defender as he started to get older toward his senior year. As I said, he's really started to come into his frame. He's moving his feet a lot better. He's starting to block a little bit more shots. He's starting to become a lot more active on the defensive end. And I think if you get him into the right tools, the right coaching, I mean, I definitely believe he can be a plus defender, especially with his size. He's a lot stronger than what that 220, 230 frame is really showing. I mean, this is a guy that did have, like I said, shed a lot of weight, so he has a lot of power just behind his frame now, and I think he's really utilized that to punish undersized defenders, blow by a lot of defenders, draw a lot of fouls, which I'll touch into here now. He's just a mismatch, and he was third team All SEC this year. He was Big 12 All Second Team last year. He was the Big 12 newcomer last year when he went to UCF. He was All Atlantic second team when he was at George Mason. And at the last two schools he's been at, he's now the season record holder for free throw makes. And at UCF, he's the season attempt holder, too. This is a guy that's just going to get downhill. He's getting to the free throw line. He's throwing his body into a lot of people. And he's getting to the free throw. When he's getting there, he's also making them. He's shooting almost 30 or 83%, almost 84% from the free throw line. And there's not really much you can do to stop him on the offensive end now. He gets downhill, he can get to the basket, you foul him, he can knock down the free throws, you play off him, he can shoot it over you. So, I mean, there's not really much more you can want from him on an offensive end. His question here is going to be defensively. And if he can be at least just an average defender, I do think that this is going to be an interesting bench player. I think it definitely be a fan favorite with his handle capabilities. And I don't know, I think it's really going to be interesting to see what team gets him here. And I think he's definitely going to be a guy that we're going to look back and be like, man, I don't understand how this is an undrafted guy with his rare capabilities to handle the ball, shoot the ball, and just be a big body. And like I said, I think the only comparison really is Naz Reid. He's not as tall, he's not as good defensively, but the same thing was said about Naz Reid, and he's just a unicorn in his own sense. But that's really all I have here, and I think that it's going to be a really interesting player for him in the next couple of years in Keyshawn Hall. Next, we're going to have another unicorn in himself in Baba Miller, and this is another really interesting guy. This is a younger prospect. He's only going to be 22. I guess he just did turn 22 last month. Born in 2004. He's going to be part of this 2026 draft class, so he will be 22 for a majority of what's going to be probably his rookie year if he does end up making a roster this year. And I think he definitely should. It's probably a guy that's going to get underlooked again just because he didn't really produce a lot of college numbers until his older years. But I don't know. You watch this guy play, and he definitely has immense levels of potential in the way he moves, and a rare blend of being 6'11", again, maybe 225, probably a little bit heavier than that now. But the quickness and explosiveness he's really started to show this senior year at Cincinnati. I mean, this really kind of shows you the level of athlete that he potentially can be. And coming into this year, he did have a little bit more respect. Or coming into, I guess, college, he did have a little bit more respect. He was the 47th ranked prospect before he did ultimately commit to Florida State. Coming off of what was the 2023 U19 championship run for Spain, and he was a standout player for that team. He was, like I said, a unicorn in a sense, being this tall player that can dribble, put it on the floor, could shoot it a little bit, and could also pass, and he had a decent feel for the game overall on both sides of the floor, offensively and defensively. I think now you flash forward, it's going to be 3 seasons, 4 years later. It's going to be really interesting to see. It's really interesting to see Baba ultimately develop into a young player at this point in time. I think his shooting is ultimately going to be another player that's going to fall into the classic can't really shoot category for me right now. I know a lot of these guys on this segment just can't really shoot, but he's only posted a career number of 29% from the three-point range, but there is hope. Last year he did post numbers of 34%, and he was shooting I think he was shooting 3 attempts a game last year at FAU, so there is hope. You then kind of have to say the other side of that. He did shoot 19% this year at Cincinnati, so it's like it's not really consistent hope, but I think there is some room to show that he can shoot the three-point shot in the future. And I think if you tie that into a lot of his abilities of just being, like I said, a unicorn, he's 6'11", he really moves his feet well, he's a really good rebounder, he can play passing lanes, he's shown that he can now be a defensive presence around the rim and a help side defender. I think the floor is, for him, maybe a rookie Giannis, and I think maybe that's also probably the ceiling, coincidentally. I don't know what really where he can really take his talent, where his skill level is ultimately going to go. I think there's a lot of coaching that is going to have to go into this prospect here in Baba, but I don't know. I don't know. I think there's a lot of room for him also to grow. Like I said, as a guy that definitely can put the ball on the floor. He's increased his assist numbers every single year to where now he's almost he did finish his year averaging 4 assists per game almost, and I don't know. Now you throw in the ability to be this crazy 6'11" athlete in the open space. He can now shoot it a little bit. He can put it on the floor already, and now he's being able to see a little bit of his other teammates out there. I mean, I think in year out he's developed a lot, and with the rebounding numbers, being able to put on a lot of weight. Now being also the problem defensively, I think if you just tie in the three-point shot, I don't know what you can really get out of him. Maybe in a perfect world, if he meets all of his potentials, maybe you can get like a fringe all-star out of Baba. I really do think there's a lot of room for him to grow. I mean, like I said, he's only just now turning 22 years old, so there's not really a lot holding him back from that sense. I mean, this is now started to acquire a lot more of these accolades as he started to go on. He's now all Big 12 second team this year. He was all Big 12 defensive team. He won All American Conference second. He was All American Conference second team last year, and this year he finished second in Big 12 in rebounds per game, and he finished third in the American last year in blocks per game. So this is a guy that started to put up a lot of statistical numbers these past couple of years. I mean, he's really started to grow into himself. He's a problem on the boards. He's a problem in the open court. He's a problem defensively. I mean, this is a guy that I think that just there's a lot of room for him to grow, and a lot of different teams can utilize this guy here. Like I said, I gave you the boring comparison of a rookie Giannis. I think the three-point shot's ultimately what's holding him back. Do I think he ultimately can grow into a Giannis? Probably not. I don't think the playmaking level is there, but the growth is what kind of hints that maybe he can do a little bit more. I think this guy you're probably going to put at your 4 primarily. Maybe you can put him down at your 5, depending on the lineup. Maybe you can even flex him to your 3, depending on the lineup. But I think this is definitely a guy that's going to be probably underlooked for a reason that I can't personally tell you. I think this is a guy that definitely should be probably top 45, top 50 again. And I think he's going to have a long career once some GM realizes that. But wrapping this thing up, I have my last prospect here in Isaiah Nelson at USF. And this is another unranked guy. This is a guy that I personally just started to find out about coming the American Conference tournament. But this is a guy that I've just instantly started to fall in love with his game. And I think that with his high energy, he's a really great athlete for his size at 6'10", almost 220 there. I think some coaches are going to fall in love with his game too, and I think there's going to be a lot of room for him to grow. I think this is a guy that he's really developed a lot coming into college. This, like I said, he was unranked. His numbers, as you can see, he's almost he's increased every statistical number every single year, aside from blocks, where I think it's hard to increase from 2 once you had a career year there. But this is a guy that's just going to be a high motor guy. He's going to play off of whatever talent you have around him. He's going to chase a lot of rebounds, block some shots, has some active hands, moves his feet really, really well on the defensive end. He's, like I said, a really great athlete, and he's really ultimately young to the basketball. I think if you get the right coaching around him, I think this is a guy that can be a high energy center off the bench. And as this game has started to trend more towards having these bigger guys back out there and more center play, rebounding's become a lot more important. I think this is a guy that some team's going to get a cheap bench option here. And I think this is a guy that's going to definitely become probably a two-way contract right off the rip. Probably will find his way into a 5 to 7 year career, and just definitely is going to be overlooked, I guess, coming into this draft cycle once again. He started to become more of a decorated player accolades-wise, with becoming the first American player, or first American Conference player to come and be the American Player of the Year, American Defensive Player of the Year, as well as being the Newcomer of the Year, all in 2026. So, I mean, this shows that he has a lot of room to grow in his game. He has kind of starting to break on into the scene, trying to develop into his own role. And he also, wrapping up his year at the Sun Belt before he transfers over from Arkansas State following his coach. He was the all third team on the Sun Belt. So, I mean, just showing the level from the, I mean, even the talent level from the Sun Belt to American, jumping from the lowest, I guess, tier level from the third team to now being the player of the year in a higher conference. I mean, it just shows the growth that he's kind of developed and just showed off for this year and for the past couple of years. I mean, this is a guy that, like I said, he just has a really good high energy, high motor. He's posted out of those 1,048 rebounds, 400 of those were offensive rebounds. And say what you want, offensive rebounds 99% of the time are just because you're outworking the other guy. And he did that 400 times. So I think any coach just looking at that is going to be like, wow, this is a guy that we definitely, if you just can develop the offensive game around him, maybe it would help him just be a little bit better or finish around the rim. I mean, the sky's the limit, really, for that bench role. This guy, personally, I think, just watching him the past few weeks, he reminds me a lot of Larry Sanders, and that's a guy that just had kind of a shorter career for the Bucks earlier in the early 2010s, but he has a lot of the same posture, a lot of motions that he possesses. It's very interesting. It's weird to see somebody else kind of just the same body language and stuff, but he's a complete I feel like a carbon copy of Larry Sanders, where he has that high energy, high motor. He wants to win. He's very adamant. He's very animated. He's hard not to like. I think this is a guy that's going to come in and be a fan favorite for whatever franchise ultimately probably picks him up in free agency after he's undrafted. But there's a lot of room to work with him here. The jump shot started to come along a little bit. As you can see, he's almost 68% for his career, but you tie in the past 2 years, he's gotten there 286 times, and he's made 208 of them. So that's coming in almost 73%. So there's room to grow in his jump shot. I said it earlier, I think his free throws can definitely translate to some three-point room. As you see the numbers there, he's shot 15% for his career, not greatest. I think he shot at least 80 shots, but if the free throw numbers are a telltale sign, I think he definitely can maybe get to 30% from the three-point line. I'm not saying he's probably going to want to shoot a lot of them, but we've seen players like Andre Drummond step out now in his early 30s. So maybe this is a guy that he's super high energy, super high motor, just works his tail off early on in his career. Maybe come 26, 27, he develops a jump shot, and that's kind of just stretches out his career. Who knows? I mean, this is a guy, he's developing a lot right now. He's showing a room to grow. He's definitely voiced his opinions that he wants to learn to grow. He's definitely committed to his coaching staff. He's been there under his coach for 4 years and transferred with him to USF. And I think this is a guy that, I mean, this guy's really a limit, like I said, and there's not really much that's holding him back, and it's going to be really interesting to see what he can do in these next coming years. But that's going to be the last player I have here, and we'll wrap this thing on up. Thanks again for watching. Like I said, this is we're getting towards the end of the college basketball season, getting into now NBA draft time, and this is one of my favorite times. I will be touching a lot more of these underrated, undertold stories, basically, of the college basketball season. And If you like these content, you can also find me on Instagram and TikTok, as well as the Box and One podcast on Spotify and whatever other platform. I do talk a weekly podcast there with my friend Deegan, Alec Deegan. So check it out there. And if not, thank you again for watching.